Hey there, Risers and Thrivers. First of all, happy Mother's Day, and welcome to this very special episode of On the Up and Up. I'm your host and creator of this podcast, Janine Heinrich, and on this episode, we're paying homage to the name of this podcast and this lovely holiday by dedicating this one to all the mothers that are out there that are on the up and up, who are working tirelessly to make ends meet, support their children, create a better future, and so much more. Which is why I invited my mama, Sussie, as a guest on this episode. For me, she's a symbol of resilience, unconditional love, and ambition. But before I get too gushy, here's a bit about her. My mom grew up in a small village just outside of Accra, Ghana. When she was 19, she met my father, who swept her off her feet on a grand adventure to Germany and around the world. But unfortunately, things didn't work out, and so at the age of 34, she found herself trying to start a new life in the US with a 3-year-old, aka me, and only a few dollars to her name. In this episode, we'll discuss forgiveness, faith, her journey as a mother, and our very different lives in our 20s. However, before we jump into all of that, we're going to take it back to the beginning. So Mom, question for you. What was your childhood like? And also, what was it like growing up with my grandmother? How did she shape you?
Yeah, growing up in Ghana, our culture is not like the European setting. We are just nuclear family. We are just big. We have community who help us growing up. And so I had siblings. I'm the last of 7. And so my mom was always busy, never around to play with me like I did with you, Janine. But my mom played a pivotal part in my life growing up because she was always there. She was always seeing to it that we are fed, we are clothed, and she was very positive. And my mom is very mellow, not like me. I took after my dad, who was always loud and bubbly. My mom is very quiet, similar something like you, but she had a strong force. So she talk to us with her eyes, and I learned from her. She's very forgiving, she's very loud, and she's very generous in everything. With my friends coming with me to the house, she will feed everybody, even though we have limited food or whatever it is. So my mom was a very great part in my life growing up and shaping me into who I am. And always with her Christianity, she never played with it. Like on Sundays, whether we are sleepy or not, we have to get up and go to church with her. So my mom shaped me into who I am, even though I grew most of my life outside the my nuclear family or the community, yes, back home.
Yeah, moms be playing big roles in their kids' lives, huh?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
the thing. A mother's love is never ending, and
Yeah.
I do appreciate the time I had with her, how she taught me, and some of her values.
And what
That
would you say some of those values were?
her value, my one thing I learned from my mom is forgiveness. She is
I don't do that very well.
Yeah, my mom, my mom would tell me that holding grudges never solve any problem.
Yeah.
So when things happen, my mom went through a lot, but when things happened to her, she would just cry or go through that process, but then she let go of it and then move on. So I saw as I was growing up that with whatever transpired within our home or with her, she would just shake it off and move on. And I saw that it really helped. It helps you not to get sick. It helps you not to get depressed. It helps you to look at life in a positive manner. So that's what I really love about my mom, that she was quiet. She was a woman of few words, not like me who babbles a lot. But she really showed that it's okay to get hurt but then move on, because life is a lesson that we learn as we grow older, as we get along. So I learned the lesson in that with my mom, with everything. God bless her soul. She's 99 100 years actually
When she passed,
when she passed.
she rest in
And
peace.
yeah, thank you. And so I realized that you can't get to 100 years with all the grudges, all the pain, all the hurts that people impose on us, or that we go through life. But she really saw life as a given.
Yeah.
That is a gift from God.
You know what's interesting, because we never actually talked about that with each other. I didn't know that that's where you learned that from. Because when I look at you, you're one of the most forgiving people ever. I think a part of me is always a bit shocked. I'm like, does she just have short-term memory? Or like, do you just have memory loss about certain things? Because, you know, we've talked about this with my dad and other circumstances where you forgive people who, in my opinion, should never even be allowed to be forgiven. Yeah. And I'm trying to emulate you, but I haven't quite gotten there yet.
You will. Yes, forgiving is like, as I said, I grew up as a Christian, and my mom was a very strong Christian, and she really taught us in a Christian home. The forgiveness is not something that comes easily.
No.
It's with time, you know, with time and prayer. Like, I remember the instances that I went through, like with your dad, or many things that I went through. It's time. It's a matter of praying. Yes, you may say that I forgive you, but I'll never forget. You don't forget it, but it doesn't come back as hurt. It comes back as, okay, I appreciate, because yes, your dad hurt me, but he brought me through him that I am who I am now. Because with what I went through with him, I was able to learn from it.
So, to an extent, let's not give the man so much credit. You are who you are now because, no, fact of the matter is you are who you are now because you're incredibly ambitious and you're hard and you are strong. Because if you would have let that circumstance, because especially towards the end of your marriage when he was really on his petty shit, to be honest, excuse my language, Mom, but when he was really being petty, that man would have been very happy to let you stay where you were. But the reason you are who you are now is because of your ambition, is because you were like, oh no, I'm going to make sure I get the best life possible. And then you packed everything with me. You took the little bit of money that you had in your bank account and moved to a country that you had absolutely no idea how functioned. Yeah. So the credit is you.
Yes, by the grace of God. Thank you. Yes, but I know that what I'm saying is that growing up in Ghana, in the village after high school, your dad is the one who brought me to Europe at the age of 19, 20. Okay. So he showed me a life that I wasn't used to. My first driving was, he bought me the car, Mercedes-Benz. And he introduced me to flying first class to Europe, back and forth. It's like, it was a great, what he gave me, but at that time I was so naive. I was very young. I didn't know what it entails to be a woman, and I didn't have a mentor growing up. My mentor was my mom. My mom came from a different era, so it was different. And when things started being sour, when things started not working well, I realized that I didn't want to stay where I was. I said, no, I'm not going to sit down there and let everything crumble. So I decided to move. And I know it was tough, but it was the best move I had. 100%. And took my daughter with me, like you, because there was no way I was going to leave you behind for your dad. He wanted you. And you know the struggle. I don't want to say it on here, but you know the struggle that ensued. But I thank God for everything that ensued. And I'm proud of who you are. I would take this opportunity to say I'm very proud of who you are. Yes. And one thing is that, yes, you saw how I struggled, and that made you stronger. Because seeing that sometimes you were limited in terms of so many resources, it's empowered you to be independent when you came to Germany by yourself, to realize that mom is not here, dad was there, half there, but it wasn't great, and you took that opportunity to be stronger, to be who you are.
But let's be honest, it was hard also. It was a hard start. I mean, and I think if we go back to the initial question of similarities and differences, one of the things that you just brought up is like your life at 19 versus my life at 19. Mm-hmm. I'd say where we were similar is like I left the house at 18. Mm-hmm. I moved to Germany on my own. And you essentially, after graduating school, you left and then you happened to meet my dad. So it's very similar, because I would also say my dad also left the house relatively young. So amongst the three of us, we all had this tendency to just like dip and go somewhere far. But lifestyle-wise, it's interesting to think about, because I can't fathom the life that you had back then. Like, you were 19, you were just married, like relatively young. You're all of a sudden in another country with this man and his family, and then you're living life between Europe and Africa, and then traveling with him to Asia, because my dad worked on international projects and he was an engineer. So he was just all over the place with all of those things. And then, you know, your dream was always to be a mom. Mm-hmm. Right. So I remember we had this brief conversation when I said, at what point did you realize you wanted to have a child? Yeah. And you were like, I think I was around your age, 26, 27. And my mind was like, whoa, because we just have two different circumstances completely, which is, it's interesting to think about.
Very true. Yeah, very true. It's like, okay, my background being African and your father being a typical German, it was tough. his family, they accepted me, yes, but it was difficult because, one, I had to learn the language very fast. And secondly,
she learned it well. She learned it well because I've been here for 8 going on 9 years and I think your German is still better.
So yeah, it was tough because my mother-in-law couldn't speak English, and I thought to myself, I have to speak the German. So I did a crash course, and thankfully it came easy for me because German language sounds like Ghanaian language with most of the
it sounds
words.
like tree, yeah,
like
with
tree,
the alphabet.
I can, yeah. So I did. However, their culture, German culture, is different from the African culture. So that was a hurdle, that was a barrier. But I was able to embrace all that, and in a way, your dad helped me as well. So I know you are not fond of all the phrases, but
no, I mean I respect him. I like him to an extent. I think it's part of my forgiveness journey. We're still working on it.
Yeah. Well, he helped me a lot.
He did.
And
He
supported
his
me
ways.
in so many things.
Yeah.
But like you said, we traveled a lot. And as a young girl, at that time, I enjoyed it because I never worked. I was with him for 13 years. I never worked until things went sour and I went to US in 2000.
And that was like the first time you were really working. You were
First
31 years old.
Yeah, I was 30. No, I had you at 31,
Oh,
so I was
shoot.
35.
You were 35 when you
35
first started
years
working.
when I started my first job in New York.
I'm
and
sorry.
that was like, whoa. I didn't know how to work and get paid. I didn't know you have to pay credit card bills back. I mean, I was
You
like...
thought it was free money?
I thought it's free money. Because it's like, your father just gave me the credit card to use. I never paid. So I didn't know how responsible to buy things and pay back. It was tough. And it took me a long time. But to tell you the truth, it took me over 10 years to get used to being responsible with money.
I'm still learning. This shit's hard.
Because yes, it was tough for me. And up till now, I'm too generous. Or I buy things sometimes and I'm like, oh, take it easy. So yeah, he spoiled me. I mean, I never bought a car on my own. Everything was given to me by him. So like I said, I appreciate what he did. Yes, at the latter part, it wasn't great, but that's life. You live and learn. And he taught me the hard way. But at the same time, I had a great time. I was spoiled until in my 35 is when like I said, I came to US and I started working.
That's wild.
And making ends meet. And I'm glad that you were there and were able to make it through.
Yeah.
So, hey.
Yeah, it's just... It's,
life has a journey.
It does. And you've had quite the journey.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fascinating to me because I can't fathom. Like, I mean, I started basically working 21. Like, I mean, I've been working since I was 16
in New York,
in the U.S. I mean, I worked as a babysitter, the first job, and then slowly at TK Maxx in German, TJ Maxx in the U.S. And then eventually...
You work at Deutsche Bank as well.
Oh my God, yeah, true. I did an internship at the Sparkasse, not Deutsche Bank. Yeah, so I've been working. And so it's just interesting to me to like, wow.
But your working wasn't survival working. It was working because you wanted to get experience.
And also, I mean, I'm also very career ambitious, right? So I always thought, okay, the more experience I get earlier on, the easier it is to get.
Because I remember you working when you were in Pennsylvania and you were working.
Oh, I wanted that car bad.
You wanted, you were so happy when you get the money in your hand.
You tell me nothing, that $500 a month. Oh!
And then you were so happy, like,
cruising down
my
the street.
own money. Yes.
With
and
my
then,
1999 Oldsmobile.
your first car. So for you, it was an adventure, as Germans would say. But for me, it was
survival.
The survival, because growing back home, we didn't have much. So opportunity like your dad coming into my life and taking me on this journey was great. So it was different. It was different. Yeah.
No, definitely it was. I mean, I think it's fascinating. Before we get into your chapter of a life in the U.S., we're going to go in chronological order because you had me at 31.
Mm-hmm.
What was there anything that surprised you about being a mom that you didn't expect?
Really, I was ready to be a mom a long time. Yes, when I was having one miscarriage after the other until I had you. So first of all, like, because I had tough pregnancy and stayed in Germany throughout the whole thing, the first thing that I told my mom when I took you back to Ghana was, wow, why didn't you tell me that having a baby is such a task? And my mom was cracking up and said, well, we never concentrate on one child just like you are doing, because I was so fascinated. Janine this, Janine that. I was seeing to it that you get fed and this. But my mom told me, in our nuclear family or our community, aunties, siblings, older siblings, and they all took care of the
It
child.
really takes a
So
village.
it's
like,
different. It takes a
everyone
village to build.
does it, yeah.
But in my culture, it's different. Even though I lived in Accra, my mom was there to help. My sisters were there, so I never felt anything. However, when I moved to US, it's when I realized how tough it is because I didn't have anybody. I have some distant family in New York, and I I stayed with them a few times, but then most of my money, early stage in New York, was going to babysitting. I had to pay babysitter for the fall program, and then even preschool before you went to preschool. So paying the money. So all my money was going to your upkeep.
And let's be honest, you didn't have much of it.
I didn't have much. I had to do 2 jobs. And that was the struggle. Like, I was always tired as a mother because I was doing double job. I was taking the train, the subways. And so it was tough. It was really, really tough. But and what I regret is that because I was working so much, I never enjoyed you the way I wanted to enjoy it with you as a kid. But at the same time, I give grace and glory to God because, like he said, for me, everything is by the grace of God.
Of course.
Because, yes, you came out well, even though I was working, babysitting, this and that. So all my money went to do babysitting.
But also, I would say, like, you don't have to regret that because for me, I think we had such fun memories. Like, I know you were very busy and I did have a lot of babysitters to an extent that also helps me to be independent. Like, I remember around like 4th grade or so, I think we did 1 year of after school care. And then after that, you were kind of like, here's the keys to the house. Good luck.
Yeah.
Like, just stay in, don't go out. And then
Mm-hmm.
I made friends and I would start going out. And I just learned, like, don't get in trouble. Be home by this time. Mom's going to be happy. And because I saw everything that you were going to, I also purposely was like, I don't get myself into trouble because this woman has enough stress. But I have such fond memories also of those times. Like, I remember when I was younger, we used to have like the sofa bed when we used to live in Main Street apartment.
Yes.
And we would just pull out the sofa bed in the living room.
And
we would,
on Fridays is our mommy daughter day, and we would just watch movies, eat Chinese, and
eat
all
Chinese,
that.
watch movies during the Christmas time, try to make cookies. Like, we had a nice time. And also when you did have time, you did make the time about me. I know my very, very younger years, I couldn't recognize that you were exhausted. So you would come home from your jobs and I'd be like, Mommy, let's play. And you're like, child, please. And it didn't help that I was a little antisocial as a kid, right? So I didn't have that many friends.
You didn't have friends. And then you are an only child, so that's different. So you open my eyes, Mom, I said, let me take a nap. Okay. And then you open my eye, are you done? And it was like, yes. I was exhausted, but one thing is that you were a sensible kid, very independent. And I always tell you that there's consequences to everything, and you did everything not to consequences. You did everything not to bring problems. Like, you were always afraid of if something happens without me.
You used to have kind of weird psychology on me because your strategy would always be to say, I trust you. Don't disappoint me. Yep. Right before I'm about to leave the house and probably do something stupid, I trust you. Don't disappoint me.
So when you go and you're doing something, I don't want to disappoint my mom. No. And that worked, so
it worked. I mean, I would say, of course, teenage years, I was definitely up to some mischief from time to time. But I would say I knew what not to do don't get caught.
Trouble.
Don't get in trouble. If you're going to do something risky, just be smart about how you're going to do something. I mean, and the thing I would always say about you is you were always very supportive. Like, have you ever heard the saying, like, ride or die? People say that. Like, you're like that, right? To an extent. Like, I also know if I ever did something criminal, you'd probably send me to the police. My mom is not the like, you killed somebody, let's bury the body. My mom would be like, you killed somebody. I'll pray for you to get to heaven, but I will call the police to take you to prison too.
That's true. I believe in doing the right thing.
I always knew don't get in trouble because this is when she will turn you into the cops. But you are also very supportive, especially like, I mean, even if I think back to like my senior year of high school, I don't know what got into me that last year. I was late.
You didn't. It was so dragging. It's like
I was done
having a race and you are the last part and you have no energy anymore. You were like, Mom, can you write me a note? Mom, can you? I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, but you also just let it be. You didn't fight me.
Yeah, it's okay because I knew you were good with your grades. You did everything, and I didn't want you to the last part to have a bad reputation, so I would just but I was supporting you too much.
She called that school almost every other morning. Sorry, my daughter's running late this morning, please excuse her for her delay. Hey y'all, before jumping into how my mom balanced her early days in the US as a foreigner struggling to make ends meet with a toddler, I have a question for all of you. How are you enjoying this episode so far? This one is definitely not my usual guest, but I thought it would be fun to try something different. So, if you're enjoying this conversation, it would mean the world to me if you could like, follow, and share this podcast on your favorite podcast streaming platforms and social media channels. Also, please don't hesitate to leave a review. I would love to know what y'all are thinking as well. And with that being said, back to the episode. But I wanted to now also kind of, because we were talking about the juxtaposition between our lifestyles, right? And I feel like, you know, today a lot of young women, it's very common actually to be in like a situation like me. You're working a lot. We're not,
juggling.
We didn't get married young, a lot of us in this generation. And I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit because I'm sometimes looking at life and I'm like, oh, this is a lot of work to balance. But how the hell did you balance it all? Because you had me, you moved to the U.S. at like 34, 35 years old. At that point, I was 3 years old or so at that point.
10, 3 years.
You were working 2-3 jobs. You had little me. You were in a country you didn't know how things fully operated. You were calling jalapeno jalapenos. I mean, that in and of itself kind of encompasses it. And like, how did you manage to balance single parenthood with life and everything else, and also your own career ambitions, because you were also trying to make it?
Yeah. Well, one thing I like about the U.S., and I'm glad I'm a citizen there, is that they were flexible with foreigners. In U.S., if I had stayed in Germany, I wouldn't have had the career I have now. In U.S., I was able to, initially, I wanted to go a further medication and all that, but when I had you, it was tough. I was limited with money. I needed my papers done and everything, and it all cost money. So I was trying to work as much as I could in order to foot the papers, my immigration papers, in order to get the right place for us to live, in order to get clothing. And it was a lot. However, like I said, U.S. is flexible because I was able to get odd jobs. If you want to work, you can survive there. So I worked different jobs, and I had some Ghanaian community there who were able to take you for me as a babysitting, sometimes off the table, and the price would be a little cheaper for me to do some night work, some days. So U.S. was great, and it helped my circumstance at the time. And so that is what I would like, because if it were to be my, after you grew up, I mean, in the earlier stage, it was tough until we moved to Pennsylvania. We were in New York, Bronx. We moved to Pennsylvania, and then things started changing. That is where you were able to also excel in school. You were able to do your best, and I was able to remarry again. However, before that, it was tough. It was tough, and I struggled, but you know, I was even going to school at the time.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, how did you manage to do everything?
Yes, I was going to the community college so that I can get a proper certificate for a proper job, because I didn't want to do 2-3 jobs. I realized that if I'm able to get my certification and my degree, eventually I will be able to get a better job instead of doing 2-3 jobs. So I was able to get my associate at the time, and it helped me to get a decent job. It helped me to be able to afford the bills. So that really helped. And then eventually, like, slowly things started getting better, but it was tough, yes. And I wouldn't, like I said, I credit it to the U.S. system that it helped me to manage things the way it was.
You know what I think also, because I think today we oftentimes hear people talk a lot about balancing, like, how do I balance parenthood with career and all of these things. And I think when I reflect on your experience or journey, you were actually never thinking about balance. You were thinking about survival. And you just did. And you did whatever it took to get things done. It didn't matter. You may have only slept a couple of hours for weeks or months on end, but you made it work. You know, and I think even back to like that, if you don't mind me sharing, that like longer period where you didn't have a job, you still found a way to go get a job. Like she started working in my school because we were in New York at the time.
Private school,
and it was a private school, and it was expensive. So it was like, okay, if I work there, then she can continue to go to school there. So at least that's covered. And then you were doing other things at the same time. And so that's why I was like, actually, when I think about what people say about, oh, I need to find a balance between everything, to an extent, somehow that's maybe even a bit of a privilege to say something like that, because for you didn't even have the privilege to think about balance.
No, I just went.
You just did.
Like you said with your school, it was a Catholic, it was a private school. And I remember I needed to pay, the fees was very expensive and I didn't have the money. So I spoke with the principal that I don't have the money to pay you. I lost my job. My papers needs to be done or what. I don't know even the circumstance that led to losing that job, because mostly my intake is in healthcare. So I lost the job and I had no experience in teaching. However, she said, oh, you speak good English. You can help with the case. Would you mind? I said, oh, I don't mind at all. So I stayed there, and that really helped to cater for some of your bills. School fees and all that, and I was able to, it helped me till I was able to get a decent job. And then even after that, like later on, I said still wanted to get my degree. It took me over 10 years.
Hey, but you did it. We were doing that algebra together, remember? I'm like, I don't know how to do this algebra. I was like, okay, I got it.
I forgot about all this. I learned so long ago, and then I had to go back to like 10th grade algebra. I said, Janine, I need your help here. And it was funny that I was able to, because even though I was helping Janine when you were little, it came to a time, you had to help me, because I stopped the schooling and everything just to make ends meet. But then I wanted to finish my degree. I wanted to get it over with, because I only needed a few credits. And here I was, after certain years, without the school, you have to revisit, you have to redo it. But I'm glad I did it and got it off my shoulder. And I'm like, I'm no more education for me.
Yeah, you're finished now.
Even though, Janine forced me, I said, I'm not doing, I'm done. So
fair enough, yeah. But it's admirable, because I remember you being like, you know what, I finally need to get this out of the way. At least finish the degree. I'm done with it after that. And then me and you sitting together, and I'm doing a bit of your algebra. But it was the same, like,
I was math challenge, mathematically challenge.
That's okay, I had you. But I think it's also funny, because then it reminds me of, like, it was always this kind of give and take with both of us. I would sometimes do your algebra. I would forget how to project due the next morning. You'd go with me. We'd find the resources. You'd help me finish it before. So it was like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like we didn't have this typical.
That's why
parents.
That's why we bonded. We were more like friends, because
But there were boundaries.
Yes.
I knew not to cross certain things. Now that I'm older, I think it's a little bit more flexible with both of us. But when I was younger, I did know you were mom. So I was definitely careful.
Yes, I knew how to, because you are like me in a certain way that I don't like to be forced into doing things. I want the freedom of doing things, because I need a guidance. And that's what I was doing too. I was guiding you. And so I don't want to impose my will on you or anybody. That's basically how I do it, even as a leader in my company. Like, I don't like imposing my will on people. I just give them the freedom to, like, oh, this is the direction, go for it.
This leads me to my next question for you. So if you could go back and change one thing about how you raised me, what would it be?
I wouldn't change anything, to be honest.
You don't think you did anything wrong?
No.
You didn't drop me on my head or anything?
Oh, please. Which African mother won't drop the child on her? I used to put you on my back, and you have a big head.
So you did drop me?
So the moment you put the African clothes on, and then boom, they do drop. And you were heavy, to be honest. You were a heavy kid.
You're admitting you dropped me?
Oh, yeah, I dropped you a few times. Okay, and that's why your head, as I used to call you, coconut is strong.
Appreciate it. But so there's nothing where you're like, oh, you wish you would have done anything different?
No. Oh, the only thing is that I never wanted my child to grow up without the mom and dad. That's my only regret. Like, that I never wanted a child where the father is not there. I wanted to grow up, because I grew up in a family where my father was there. And so that was my regret. Like, what did I do? What happened? Because there were so many instances as you were born. However, I thank God for raising you, because maybe if it had been two parents, you would have come out differently. I don't know. So in everything, God said, give thanks. And I'm a Christian, so I will always revolve back to
It's going to be a very religious episode, but it's okay. No, it's interesting. I mean, I would say more or less the same here. I think maybe the one thing I do wish you would have been because I always feel conflicted. Sometimes I see these like tiger moms or these parents who are very like strict with their kids. And one thing that you were, because like you said, you don't like to force your will onto other people. So even when I think back to piano, for example, you really wanted me to play it. I didn't want to, but I played it for you for a little while, and I didn't like it.
And then you didn't like
I
it,
quit.
stopped it. But you substitute the other one, the flute.
But I had been playing the flute before that. Yeah. And then
So-
at one point I quit the flute too. So
I know there were certain things I should have forced
Yeah.
you, but like I said, forcing you would have made you do it,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't have, because like even your career path, you know,
oh Lord. Ooh,
you wanted to do science.
Testy
You were very
topic.
good in science,
yeah.
and I should have forced you to continue because you wanted to do whatever they call
I
it
wanted to go into medicine.
in the medicine.
Pediatrician.
Pediatrician. That was it, and I should have forced you to do it. However,
Well, I think this is where this might turn into a whole debate again, but let's see how this goes. My issue with this topic is the rush that you put on me to go to university right after. I just wish I would have had a year
sabbatical.
just to figure it out,
Where
because I
come
had
from,
just
we don't.
I don't care. Well, we're in Europe now, Susie, because I needed a year just to figure out Germany. Like I had just gotten here, and because of the pressure to study, I was like within 3 weeks I found a school and I was on my way, which was just a bit too much, too soon.
I don't regret that.
Where
to be
I
honest.
ended up in an industry where initially you got lucky that I ended up liking what I do for work, but if we think back to like my personality wise and everything, I was always more of a science and mathematics kid. I was always very quiet to myself. And now you've got me in business.
It's fine.
Talking to people.
You found your way. You are venture architects or whatever.
Yeah.
You were very good with your hand. You were very good in developing things, and you were very good in engineering and being a project leading stuff. So you've at the same time, even though you didn't go into the medicine or the career that you as a kid wanted, and you came into this, like I said, you've been able to find, because being an entrepreneur now, you are able to build companies that are startups. You are able to lead people. You are able to, like even this podcast, you are able to interview people. It's something that you enjoy.
I enjoy
now.
it, but I had to learn it.
Exactly.
Right?
We
Like-
learn. You have to learn everything.
Yeah, but that learning also came from you once again, because I was very quiet. I didn't like to talk to people. And even, what was it, what you say with me on the phone as a kid?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'll call on the phone, Janine, hello. And then you even drop the phone because you get so scared. Like,
I was stressed.
even talking on the phone.
Yeah.
I'm here. Speak out. I was like, Janine, Janine.
I can't hear you.
I can hear you. And then I said, speak up. And so when I registered you in the Passion, in the
Yeah.
John Robert,
Yeah.
that helped you because they were teaching etiquette, little etiquettes.
Etiquette,
simple
public
talk.
speaking.
That was what the guy always said. That guy, the nice guy, the older gentleman, he would tell you, small talk.
Yeah, it's all the small talk.
Do the small talks. And that helped you because it makes you not to be shy when you are new with people. It helped you. And it has helped you to overcome, because I never had thought you be able to do this, what you're doing now.
No, you didn't think I could do it?
No, because you were the shy type growing up. But you've overcome your shyness and you are so bubbly. Like when we had a vacation in Ghana this time, I saw the way you were mingling. I'm like, whoa, Janine is not becoming like me.
Well, that's the thing, though. I like now when I reflect on it, because I remember as a kid, you all would say I'm shy or something. I don't think I was necessarily shy. I think it was the context, right? Like, we kind of uprooted abruptly to move to New York. And New York, the Bronx was a rough place, especially for me as a kid, where I got bullied in school a lot. So I think that made me kind of come into myself a bit more, because naturally, I wouldn't say that I'm quiet. I like to observe before I react. But then I think in those contexts, with all of the experience as a kid and being bullied and all those things, I had a harder time finding my place. So it made me become shy, because it rocked my confidence. It made me nervous.
But when we moved to Pennsylvania,
yeah, that's when it changed.
it changed. Yeah,
It got
because
better.
You loved it there. You became more outgoing, outspoken. You
Yeah.
became more lovelier. And so I always said that I'm glad I moved
Yeah, me too.
away from New York.
And I think it also really changed a lot once I moved to Germany on my own. And I think it's interesting because, like, I realized now you're in Germany, and I did that TEDx talk on Friday, and that was the first
So
time.
proud of you.
That was the first time that you actually ever got to see me work or
Yeah.
do a work thing.
Yes.
In the last, like, this is going to be
8
year
years.
9
Oh,
in
wow.
Germany. This year's
Yeah.
9 years in Germany. And it's interesting to me because I realized, like, you actually don't know what adult me It's like, because when I come home to visit, I go back into kid mode.
Yeah.
Laundry's everywhere. I wait for mom to make food. I act like a kid.
Yes.
But when you're here in like my environment, this is where
you're differently now.
Yeah.
You're like, you've grown, and I'm so proud of the woman you've become. Like, I was so proud of you giving that TED Talk speech, and so the preparation towards that, how you were practicing it and doing everything, and then in your apartment. Yes, I've been there, but the last time I was there, we were rushing to a graduation at the uni. So it's like I've seen the stages that you are growing, and now thanks to technology, we FaceTime every day, we video chat every day and everything. So we are more or less closer, but at least now it's like a hands-on training, and I'm so proud of you. Like, whoa, that's Jenny. Now I'll relax, and you're the one cleaning around and cooking and doing that. So
it helps because you were the one behind it. I don't think that I would have gotten this far without you, especially the first years of living alone and in Germany. I mean, we talk pretty much every day for the last 8 years.
Yes.
But that's needed because oftentimes it is lonely for me living out here. Like, and it's not easy always doing these things on my own. It sucks. Sometimes, like, I know I can do a lot on my own. I know I can. But it helps when I have someone I can talk to about it. Yeah.
Ooh, I'm proud
emotions.
I'm proud of how independent you are, and I think that you are like me in being independent, because I was very independent. Even though I'm the last born, people always think that last borns are spoiled, like pampered or something. But as a kid, I was always very independent. Like, I love to do things on my own, travel on my own. So.
Yeah, but that's why, like, it's good that we're independent, right? But we also need someone.
You need someone.
And I'm glad that we
sometimes.
have each other. Like, as I'm on the up and up in my life and career, I don't know if I would have gotten as far without having you as like a crutch to turn to whenever
the going get tough.
Yeah, because it's the going has gotten tough a couple of times since I lived here on my own. Especially I would say that period of COVID where you could not come and where my dad had passed and everything was going on and I really sank. If it wasn't for me being able to talk to you, I don't think I would have really, because it was hard. It sucked. And even this time around, you're also kind of coming initially, not only for the TED Talk, but because I was also a little bit on a down. And you were like, okay, not my kid, not this time. I'm not going to be there for her. And so that's why I think for this Mother's Day episode, really wanted to say, like, to all the moms, especially my mom, who's the reason why
you are who you are.
I am who I am and where I am. It's because of you. It's the resilience, is watching you forgive, even though I have yet to master it, but I'm working on it because it's true. It helps to let go. It's the reason I'm able to go through the craziest circumstances and laugh about it or not even be so bothered is because I've seen it through you. And I know I joke all the time where I'm like, because you're always like, oh, God is preparing you, making you stronger. And I'm like, listen, I don't know if he's having me lead the army against Satan at the what is it called, the rapture, because I'm like, how much more strength do I need at this point? But all of those things is because I've watched it through you, and you've gone through more than I can even fathom. And with that, because we're getting closer towards the end of the episode, question to you is, what hopes do you have for me for the future, both personally and professionally?
Well, personally, I would say that you're doing great. So I'm so proud of you. And I support your decision and everything. And I'm so glad that we have that friendship, mom-daughter friendship. So continue doing what you're doing. And in everything, like I said, put God first, because we don't have the energy in us, but the Spirit of God gives us the energy. That I would say. People can call it whatever they want to call, but for me, it's the Spirit, the Holy Spirit in you, the Spirit in you that gives you the energy to do what you're doing. And also be forgiving. Yes, it's not easy, but when things go tough and you cried, it's fine. You are down, it's fine, but get up, shake it off, and move on, because life has so many obstacles, and when life hands you lemon, you make lemonade out of it. So just don't take things like that's the end of anything. There's always a lesson in everything. And what else? The second question?
Personally and professionally.
Okay, I gave you personal one. The professionally, what you're doing, I know you have a lot and you plan doing your PhD and everything. So hey, your podcast is you started as a hobby, and I can see I'm following every episode. I'm
is.
your cheerleader.
Hey.
So I just want to see more, and I'm glad you dedicated this one to mothers. Thank you for
To my mother.
thank you for honoring mothers. Thank you for respecting. Always be who you are, because I'm glad that how I raised you hasn't come back to bite me, but it's rather giving me praise. It's rather because people ask me, how did you? I don't know. It's just by the grace of God. So continue doing what you're doing. Continue pursuing your career and everything. And in everything, give thanks to God. That's all.
Appreciate it. And I would say for me to you, although you didn't ask me the question, but I'll throw it back to you. I really do hope, you're 59 now.
Oh my God, you said my age.
I know, I just told you. But what I like is that it's a beautiful thing, because I'm really hoping that in the next year, it's really the start of another beautiful chapter for you, where you can really start to enjoy life to the fullest, because, you were 19 to 31, you had me then you moved to the US at 35, and you've really been working hard. And I feel like it's just the last couple of years where things have gotten a lot more peaceful for you. And I really pray that it continues in that direction, that this next year is the kickstart of a very beautiful chapter in your life that's all about you, where you get to be selfish. You get to enjoy all that the world has to offer, because you deserve it now.
Thank you.
It's time for you to enjoy too. So with that, it's pretty much the end of the episode. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so
fun.
Proud of my baby girl, Janine.
Thank
you, dear. Thank you for having me.
And to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. Keep doing the amazing things to have your kids on the up and up, and keep working hard to break those barriers and redefining what it really means to be a mother for many of you. So thank you. I really appreciate you all for tuning in for this episode, and remember to show all the mothers in your life some extra love today, because they deserve it. Before you go, please share this podcast with others that you know who will enjoy it. And remember to follow or like On the Up and Up on your favorite social media and podcast streaming channels to always know when a new episode goes live. As always, onwards and upwards, y'all, and I'll speak to you again soon.